The event that I want to tell you about is actually a series of 3 stories, but they are all related to the same set of events. These stories take place 10 to 15 years ago, next to a huge set of woods just north of Austin, Texas. Here is the first one. I am 12 years old or so, hanging out with a close-knit group of friends, the kind of kids who prefer to wander and build shit out in the woods than to participate in organized sports. There is this large area of forest between the two neighborhoods that we live in. We have spent years mapping out areas of the woods, building forts and stashing things that we find at our bases: wagons, tools, rope, nails, boards, shopping carts, camping and fishing gear, etc. Most of the areas we have named after locations in Tolkien books. One night, around 8 p.m., a group of 8 of us are playing war games in 2 separate areas of the woods, probably a half-mile apart from each other. My group, which is about 4 people in total, are defending this old, dried-up pond that we call Helm's Deep. This pond is really only the size of a small watering hole and has since become overgrown with trees in the center and outsides, a perfect bowl shape for camping and role-playing sieges. The second group of 4 is in the woodline, about to stage their final attack before we all turn in for the night. Most of our parents do not like us out past 10, even during the summer months. The woodline and our watering hole is separated by about 800 meters of open grasslands. Much of the grass is waist to shoulder height. We were still all pretty short, with a dirt road running almost smack through the middle of the field that sometimes older people used to ride their recreational vehicles on. From across the field, I see one of my friends on the attacking team signal with a large piece of cloth draped over a stick. This is the signal that the attack is going to begin. As he raises the flag, all 8 of us observe a dust trail moving along the dirt road that bisects the grasslands, with 2 headlights and a large spotlight on the back, slowly panning the fields and grasslands. As the dust cloud grows, we can all see a flatbed pickup truck hauling ass towards a bend in the road that is only about 200 meters away from where we watch on the edge of the bowl. Sure enough, as the truck hits the bend in the road, it stops, and 3 men hop out of it. I look across the field, but the attackers for the war games have totally disappeared. All 4 of us defenders are proned out along the rim of this bowl, observing these men. By this time, it's probably 8:15 or so, and the light is getting bad, so we are forced to listen instead. The only problem is that they are 200 meters away. We talk amongst ourselves, and we decide that I will go along with one of my friends, and the 2 youngest, my brother and his friend, will stay on the bowl watching us, the 2 scouts, gather intel. At this point, it was just a game, and more of a, let's see how close we can get to them before they spot us. Me and the second scout, Wade, bent over into the tall grass, careful not to make too much noise. It was tough because it had not rained that much that summer, and the grass was dry. We get within feet of the dirt road, and we stop dead in our tracks. 2 of the men are talking heatedly, obviously looking for someone, both out of our line of sight, rummaging in the bed of the truck. What makes us both stop and hold our breath is the 3rd man, who is standing probably 10 feet away from where we hide in the brush. He is wearing a flannel shirt, work gloves, and waders, the sort of overalls that you wear when fishing in a creek or a lake, and on his face, he is wearing some sort of a burlap mask or sack. In his hands, he has a firearm. He is holding it loosely at waist level. The light was bad, but I think it was some sort of a shotgun. I look to my friend next to me, and he shakes his head emphatically and says no. I look back across the road, and I see 4 sets of eyes in the brush on the other side staring at us. The attacking group from the war games has had the same idea, and both of us are listening to the 2 men behind the truck argue about how so-and-so was not watching and she got away. He must have been trying to get a better position, because when I look back at my friend on my side of the road, he was fidgeting, and eventually went ass over tits into the grass, causing the bush to crackle extremely loudly. I look back to the men, standing only a few feet away into the road, and he is looking dead at our position, and I have to fight the urge to not get up and sprint away. The front of his burlap mask had crudely cut holes for eyes and no mouthful. It would have looked comical if he was not holding a shotgun. He stares in a direction for what seems like forever, and he is finally called back to the flatbed by the two friends, who have finished rearranging things in the bed of the truck. They all pack up, turn on the headlights and spotlight on the truck again, and head out. We ended up waiting 5 minutes before both groups decided it was safe to meet in the middle of the road. We compared descriptions, and according to the attacking group across the road, the two men rummaging in the truck were dressed similarly to the first man in the middle of the road. We all talked for a few minutes about what they could have been looking for, and decided that they were probably poaching deer or animals, and were wearing masks so that if somebody saw them, they would not be directly identified. We all agreed that it was extremely lucky that we were not spotted or accidentally shot, and made our separate ways home for the night. About 3 weeks after the first incident involving what we thought were poachers, my father was being a real asshole this day, and I was not able to meet up with my friends until after supper. I had summer cleaning and chores. I call my friend's house, and his mother says that the regular group of guys are all in a woods again, and that I should run out and find them. I quickly throw on some long sleeves, jeans and a jacket, and head out to find where they may have been playing/exploring. My brother had plans with other friends and was not going to join me. I never bother to take a flashlight or a torch because the weather during the summer is usually clear around July, and the light from the moon and stars is usually enough to navigate by using familiar trails and terrain features. I make my way across the creek behind my neighborhood, the terrain feature that marks the start of the inner woods in this area, and climb the steep embankment on the other side. This embankment is man-made, probably by a bulldozer of some sort, and overlooks the grasslands, recreational vehicle trails, and footpaths on the plains below. It is a great spot to look for flashlight beams in the distance, or to listen for voices in the field. By this time, it was already extremely dark, and on a trail below I hear footfalls and a few tidbits of chatter and laughter. I climb down the embankment, and I shuffle over to my familiar group of friends, only 3 this time, all of whom were heading home. We all climb back up the embankment, meaning to cross the creek on the other side of this man-made bridge or plateau, when we hear a group of other voices. Curious as ever, we all hunch over and quietly make our way to an area of this embankment that would provide the clearest vantage point on the trail that we hear the voices moving down. We all get into position, crouching instead of laying down. The area that we were at was extremely rocky, and it was dark already, so crouching would be enough to hide our outlines. We wait for about 5 minutes, the voices growing louder, and we see 3 figures enter the trail below us, 2 men and 1 woman. The woman is in the center. She appears extremely dirty, and sounds like she is either sobbing or laughing lightly. The men are on either side of her, both holding on one of the woman's arms each, and both men are dressed as they were on our first encounter. Long sleeves, crude burlap masks, and weapons on both of them. The one closest to us has an axe handle and a large keyring of some sort hanging out from his belt. The men are lecturing the woman, talking about how she can't be roaming outside by herself, and how they were just trying to protect her and keep her safe. They continue to walk closer to our field of view, and I see the woman's face. It is emotionless. No fear, no sadness, just resignation. All 4 of us exchange glances with each other, acknowledging the fact that these were the same men from before, and wait until the group is out of eyesight/earshot before making our way back across the creek and into our neighborhood. Later that night, we decided to tell my friend's father what had happened. He asked if we saw anybody hurt or being hurt, and we told him no. He asked if we saw anything that looked blatantly illegal happening, and again, we said no. So the issue was dropped, for the time being. A full year after the sighting of the woman on the trail, we all decide that we are going to go camping. During this time period, much of the woods was being demolished and leveled for real estate development companies, and we thought it would be cool to camp out under a newly constructed and paved bridge in a woods where they were building a new housing development. We all trek out around 8 p.m. and make our way through the forest and to the same field where we first saw the men with the burlap masks. We are chatting and joking, and eventually we reach the bridge and set up camp. It is damn near pitch black, so we all decide that the first order of business was to gather wood. We split up and start collecting small pieces of tinder/paper that people and construction crews had thrown onto the ground. About 15 minutes into gathering wood, one of my friends starts arguing loudly with another. I go to investigate, and friend A is yelling at friend B for throwing shit at him while he is picking up firewood. Friend B swears to Christ he is not throwing anything, and we eventually get the fire constructed. A few hours later, after we had burned gasoline, thrown aerosol cans into the fire, and generally had finished acting like idiots, we started sharing stories about the woods. One of our friends goes out to piss and returns, white-faced. He says while he was pissing, he saw/heard somebody moving around in the brush next to the tree line about 20 meters away. We tell him to calm down and that it was probably an animal. Several times during the spring, we had nearly stepped on bobcats protecting litters of their young. It was the loudest scream/growl I have ever heard. It will make you shit your pants. We all eventually settle down, and one by one we fall asleep, but we allow the fire to burn as we do, in case it is some sort of scavenger/predator animal. At around 3 in the morning, we are all awoken by flashlights and harsh voices telling us that we need to get up. I shake myself awake and see a firefighter and a police officer standing on the concrete embankment at the top of the bridge that we are camping under. They had pulled a couple of police cruisers and one fire engine on top of the bridge, using one of the newly paved roads. They make us call our parents, tell us that we should have known better than to start a fire and leave it unattended. One of the cops even finds an ancient pack of cigarettes that was discarded. It was moldy as hell and starts to interrogate us. Which one of you was smoking? Anyways, when all is said and done, it is my mother who picks us up in her minivan and carts us home. As we were loading up, one of the police officers turns to my mother and says, "You know, when I showed up, there was a really creepy guy in red plaid that was standing at the edge of their camp, watching the whole group sleep." The cop goes on. "This guy was extremely evasive, smelled like he had not showered in weeks. When I asked him what he was doing, he said that you guys had invited him for the party." The cop said, "I tried to ask him for some identification, but he took off into the brush before I could approach him. You kids need to pick smarter places to camp." I exchanged looks with my friends, and I asked him from the back seat, "Hey, was he wearing a burlap mask?" The cop said no, but it looked like he had something like that hanging from his belt, along with an axe handle. Nope. My friends and I decided that was our last camping excursion, and that it would be best to stick to playing Morrowind indoors. The woods were completely paved over and remodeled into housing developments about a year later. This happened to me back in around the year 2008 or so. I was working as a deep-sea diver on the ONGC oil rig off the coast of Mumbai in India. I had been working in this field for many years by this point, so I was fairly experienced. The ONGC rig was approximately 100 nautical miles away from the coast and was surrounded by the Arabian Sea. I would spend hours and hours underwater fixing and mending the rig and different structures. What I want to tell you about happened to me around August time. I was on a routine maintenance dive with my coworker, who I will call A. We were both there to fix a leak on a pipe section, which was around 100 feet underwater. It was around dusk when we descended. We could not really see all that much. There were these tubing lights installed along the structure that gave a little bit of visibility, but it was quite cloudy. It wasn't still like it usually would be when we were under there. And then I started hearing this really odd noise, some kind of metallic echoing. It sounded closer to maybe an underwater vehicle propeller, but fainter than that, and I could hear something like a fish quickly flapping its fins in the water. This was not a noise I had ever heard before. I was facing the rig while A was positioned towards the sea. I was just plugging away when I suddenly caught sight of something from the corner of my eye. I could see like a vague silhouette shifting around, and it was not A. I immediately spun around and saw that A was fixed on something over in the distance, and when I looked, I saw this silhouette again. It was probably around 50 feet away. I could not make out a ton, but this thing must have been about 12 feet long in total, maybe even longer than that. It got a little bit closer, but not that close. It was not moving rapidly. It was just kind of letting the water move it, if that made sense. I could not see it exerting any effort or making any kind of visible forward motion. It had this long and streamlined body, kinda like a shark would. But this thing had 2 long front flippers too. It appeared to have some kind of body covering. It looked much more like some kind of fur or hair than scales though. Maybe like an otter. I don't really remember it perfectly. Again, the lighting was not the best, so I could not make out everything. But there is one detail that still sticks out in my mind. At first it was not moving, but at one point, all of a sudden, it just jolted into action. I could not tell if it had been looking in our direction and caught sight of us or not, but when it started moving, it looked like it was crawling forward in a weird manner. Like it was pulling itself forward with its flippers, then extending its hind body forward in a single fluid motion. Much more like a seal on land. At this point, I was freaking out, so I got on the radio and reported what I was seeing. They straight up did not believe me at first. I kept insisting, and they eventually stopped pushing back. I think only because they could hear the panic in my voice. I don't know if they believed my description so much as they believed that my panic was real. There was no surface crew available or nearby though, so they told us to continue our work, but stay as close to the rig as possible and to not interact with the thing, no matter what. At this point though, I was put off. I was worried, but I couldn't just not do my job. But at some point though, this thing, it definitely started moving towards us. I think it was the beams of light. I think it caught sight of them. This thing was not exactly slow either. It just kept shifting in our direction, and at first, A told me to relax and that this thing was probably not harmful. He said at worst it might tickle me, and for a moment I believed him and tried to laugh it off. But this thing got within 20 meters of us, and I could see it very clearly at that point. I tried to stay calm, but it got closer and closer, and it was much larger than I initially thought. It had huge round eyes, and what appeared to be some kind of a snout. At first it just seemed curious, and seemed to poke around, but at some point it just worked itself up into a frenzy. It seemed to be bumping into and prodding at my leg, and at one point, I saw it look up at the light, and I saw its eyes change. The pupil suddenly shrunk much, much smaller. Initially it fled, but that is not what it was doing. It got a little distance away from me before it charged at me and slammed into my leg. This knocked me off balance because I was caught off guard, and as I was off balance, I suddenly felt a sharp and stinging pain in my lower leg, and it was not long before I saw blood in the water. This thing had taken a bite out of me. A was freaking out and trying to grab this thing. Its teeth were stuck in my leg, and it was just moving its head rapidly back and forth like a dog biting something, like a dog ripping up a chew toy and shaking it. I kept feeling the pain getting sharper and sharper, and this thing was sinking its teeth in much deeper. A had finally managed to grab it, and I just punched it. It was like punching in my dreams. I barely made any decent contact, but I just kept slamming it again and again with my fist as best as I could, as A tried to pry it off me from behind, and eventually it let go. It got distance and made another charge for me, but I managed to divert it with a kick that hit it in the face. And after that, it just retreated. It retreated so quickly. It really scared me how quickly it moved and disappeared. I called it in again after that. We were finishing the work later. I told them that I had been injured and could not continue without it being treated, and they relented and let us go up. I told them again what I saw, and again they did not believe me. To this day, I have no idea what the hell that thing was. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. I live in PA. I used to spend time hiking up in the Poconos. The friend that I used to hike with up there went down to Appalachian State University. He is always telling me how I should come down for some in-the-woods fun. During the summer of 2006, I drive down from PA to NC to spend a week backpacking. He introduces me to his friends. We get absolutely stupid drunk the first night, having a good time. The next day, we start getting shit together on a hike they planned out in Roan National Park. We should have got started at about 8 AM, but we did not get out till 1 PM due to the hangover. We planned to be out for around 4 nights. We split up the gear evenly among us, and one of the guy's girlfriends drives us out to the start of the trail. The trail is little more than a game path. We tell her that we will call her for pickup from a diner on the other side of the park, from a payphone for pickup. Now, I was in decent shape, never smoked a day in my life, and have a decent amount of hiking under my belt. Even though we were not even that high, I'm huffing and puffing like a fat chain smoker. They set a brisk pace, and I struggle to keep up. They keep asking me if I'm okay. I just tell them I'm getting used to the elevation change. I struggle to keep up until late afternoon, almost dusk. Never have I pushed myself so damn hard. I can hear my heartbeat in my ears. My vision is starting to go blurry. The group keeps stopping for me to catch up. The rest of the group is trying to push for a campsite. I'm just slowing them down. I am dragged further and further behind the group. Every time they look back, I wave at them to just keep going. My friend comes back around and tells me that the group is going to go ahead of us to get a campsite going. He is going to stay back with me. I tell him to just go on. I'm okay all on my own. He tells me it's not a big deal and that they understand. At this point, I have never felt worse in my life. I could not catch my breath at all. I had this pounding headache and I could not see right. To be honest, I could not go on even if I wanted to. He tells me to sit down and take a rest. We'll catch up to them at whatever campsite that they pick. He said that we will see the camp from the trail. I just sit down, trying to catch my breath. I close my eyes for what feels like only a moment. When I finally open them back up again, it is pitch black outside. I call out for my friend, but I get no answer. I still feel really shitty, but a little bit better than before. I fumble out my headlamp. High, medium, and low mode do not work. The headlamp is not working. But I find out that only the moonlight mode works. It does this when the battery is low. I strap it on. It's bright enough to follow the trail anyways. I glance at my watch. It's 1 AM. I have been out for a while, but it felt like I only blinked. I call out for my friend again. I get no answer. I am a little freaked out, but I figure he went to the camp. It couldn't be that far away, right? I start off at a slow pace, keeping my breathing in check. I am watching my footing moving along. I must have hiked the trail for about an hour. There is no sign of my friends on the trail at all. I start to wonder if I'm even on the trail. I am thinking about maybe doing some backtracking, but I decide against that. I go on for a bit. There is still no signs of my group, and I am getting less and less sure of being on the trail. I look back at my watch. It still says 1 AM. This shit must be broken. I also notice that the day is off. It says Monday when we started off on Friday. I start panicking a little and just yell out my friend's name as loud as I can. I still get no answer. I start to backtrack to where I started off from. I somehow ended up on a path up on a ridge. Never in my life have I seen so little signs of human life. Only really see what I think is Boone way off in the distance. I start to think about heading down the ridge towards the city. I start heading down the mountain towards the slope that goes towards the light of Boone. As soon as I get a little ways down, the light disappears behind the tree line. At this point, I am panicking about being lost. I am pushing myself too hard at elevation that I was not adjusted to. I am around halfway down the slope when I hear something from up at the top of the ridge. I say something back because I'm not sure what I heard. Just something. Like almost a log being dropped or something. Kinda like a thud. I can't see the trails I was on, but I thought that maybe it was my friends, and I start yelling at the top of my lungs. I hear a yell back. Now, at the time, it did not occur to me that the yell did not sound like any one of my group. I was just extremely happy that I got found, so I yell back, "Hey, guys, I'm coming back up. Do not move." I start trying to get back up the ridge. I am struggling. I am pushing myself way too hard again. I am about half the distance to the top of the ridge when I stop and try to see my friend's flashlight. Only having my headlamp on moonlight mode, I can't really see anything. At this time, I see what I think is a figure coming towards me. I think it's my friend. Oh shit, man. I was freaking out. I thought I stopped talking as I got a look at the figure. In no damn way was it human. I mean, no way. It was way too big and definitely not the right shape. It looked way too slender in some parts, but way too thick in others. Now, my headlamp does this thing where if the battery is low, it will only shine moonlight mode, but if I switch it to turbo mode, it will light up for half a second before kicking back down to moonlight. I reach up and switch my light to turbo to light up the figure. The bright flash was enough to light up this thing in front of me, about 30 feet up the slope. What I remember most about this thing was it had the face of like almost a possum, but it was bigger than a human. I scream out the worst scream that I had in me, and I turn around to run down the slope. I only took 5 steps before I tripped up and rolled down the slope. Things get really hazy at this point in my memory. I remember coming to a stop and a sharp pain from the base of my head down my neck that felt like I was being stabbed as I moved my head. I was laying on my belly, trying to move forward down the rest of the slope. Every time I tried to look back, the pain in my neck would almost make me pass out. Now I remember hearing something coming up on me as I crawled. It does not make too much sense, being I was moving so slow that anything that wanted me could have gotten me easily. My head was spinning. The pain was unbearable in my neck. I am struggling to even catch my breath. I felt like this thing was right on top of me, sitting on me, putting all of its weight down on me. At this point, my body stopped listening to me, and I could not move anymore. I think I passed out here for a while. It's hard to tell. I think I passed out because I go from hyperventilating to mostly calm breathing in just a snap. I slowly push myself over onto my back. Still only the moonlight, still can't really see. I reach up for my headlamp to try to turn on the turbo mode again, but before my arm gets to it, this shooting pain down my neck brings my arm back down. I lay on my back for a while, trying to see or hear anything up on the slope, but I've got nothing. I slowly start to get up. Every time I flex my neck, I get a crippling pain down my body. I start shuffling down the rest of the slope, going from tree to tree, leaning on it. I am in pure panic mode at this point, and I am just crying hysterically. I am just straight up sobbing. I am trying to rack my brain on what to do. I keep trying to head straight to where I think I've seen the lights of Boone, the town the college is in. After a while, my sobbing slowly stops, and I start thinking normally. I'm trying to figure out how bad my neck is hurt and how far I've got to go. I am resting, leaning on a tree. I close my eyes for a second. All of a sudden, I feel something on my back. I turn around and swing my arms the best that I could, but I get blinded by light. I am still swinging. I am kicking too. I am not really able to see due to the light blowing out my eyes. I end up on the ground. My arms are being held down at my side. The pain in my neck is making me feel sick, but I just keep on struggling. Then my eyes start to adjust, and it turns out that it was my friend and one of my hiking buddies. The only thing is, they are talking, but I can't actually hear a thing. I nod my head, and they let go. I keep saying I could not hear them. They are looking at me like I am missing a face. The other guy takes some water out of his bag and gives it to me. I drink it, trying to tell them what happened in between gulps. I just keep saying my neck is hurt. They help me up, and with my friend's help, we start walking. They keep mouthing words to me. I can just about make out that they are saying campsite. Slowly, we get to the camp. My hearing is coming back little by little. We get to the camp and I sit down on a log. At this point, my hearing is probably around 50% of what it should be. I ask my friend, why did he leave me? He says he couldn't wake me up and went back to the camp for help. When he got back, I was gone. I tell them what happened. They both look at me like I am crazy. I ask where the others are. They tell me that they are looking for me. I start to feel silly about even telling them about the thing. I start to think that it was all in my head. The pain in my neck starts to ease up. I start asking about what time will all of the others be back. They say they would return at midnight. I tell them I'm gonna sleep for a bit. I lay down by the fire sleeping. My friend wakes me up, looking scared as shit. The other guys return to the camp and we're packing shit up. We gotta go, right now. Right now. I hear the guys that were looking for me talking about something in the woods. I ask, did it look like a possum? The guys just stare at me before one of them goes, we gotta get the hell out of here. We hike out the way we came. Once again, I am slower than the rest of the group. Only my friend stays with me this time, as the rest of the group goes out of sight. He tells me, don't worry man, I'm not leaving you. I have to keep stopping to catch my breath and rest my neck. My friend stays with me. He does not even rush me. Don't worry man, I've been out in the woods at dark up here. I can get us back. We keep moving at a slow pace. My friend keeps saying things like, you guys just got spooked. A lot of things in the woods go bump in the night. I am resting with my back to a tree. My friend is just looking around, waiting for me. I look up at his face as he looks behind us. His face is frozen. He licks his lips and says, we got to move faster. At this point, he turns and grabs my backpack strap and starts pulling me along. I don't even question it. I just start to push as hard as I can. After running for what seems like forever, we get to a road and see the group huddled around a payphone. They called the one guy's girlfriend for a ride. She shows up and takes me right to the hospital. I keep trying to tell her the story and she is not buying it. We still talk about it, but I have not moved down like I promised.